It is 5 o'clock somewhere, and you've tuned into episode 18 of BRC. For those of you who'd like to watch this episode, it's available on our website, YouTube, and Spotify. This being Christmas week, I chose a very special guest to talk to in our Tales from the Still segment. Paul Tuell of Ballotin Chocolate Whiskey joins me to go over his festive flavored portfolio. Then later in the show, we hear from Chef Louise Leonard about what she cooks up with one of Paul's expressions. Then lastly, I share a holiday treat that I came up with using Ballotins. Stay tuned.
There's nothing better than the smell of coffee in the morning. What if you could enjoy a coffee subscription of fresh, roasted specialty coffee while making a difference in the lives of farmers that grow it? What if you also had access to a virtual coffee community of other coffee lovers and the coffee farmer and roaster? That's all part of the Farm to Cup Coffee Club subscription at Unleashed Coffee. Subscribe today. UnleashedCoffee.com.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or whatever time you're watching or listening to this episode of the Barrel Room Chronicles. I am here today with Paul Tuell of Ballotin Whiskey, and I got introduced to him about this whiskey relatively recently, and I fell in love with this idea because I'm a big chocoholic, which is why I'm wearing my brown shirt today for those of you at home. And I love chocolate, I love whiskey, I love pairing them together, and when I saw that he's making chocolate flavored whiskeys, I said, got to get this man on here. So Paul, welcome.
Hey, Kerry. Great to be here. Yes, chocolate is definitely our secret sauce, a Ballotin Chocolate Whiskey. I'm so excited you've had a chance to try it and get introduced to it.
Yes. So usually we start off the show by asking about your whiskey journey. But since this is also chocolate, I'm going to ask you how your whiskey journey and your chocolate journey collided to make this wonderful product.
Yeah, great. So, long time spirits industry guy. So I worked with Brown-Forman for many years, about 25 years at Brown-Forman, which is the Jack Daniels in Woodford. And when I was there, the Southern Comfort and Finlandia vodka company, right? Those, while Southern Comfort has since left the Brown-Forman portfolio. But anyway, about 25 years in sales and marketing, various positions, ended up running Southern Comfort in North and South America. So if you are familiar with Southern Comfort, at all, kind of the first flavored whiskey. I mean, that was developed in 1874 by a guy named M.W. Herron, went on to win a gold medal at the St. Louis World Fair in 1904. So anyway, even at what we think about and is true as a very sort of bourbon-y company that Brown-Forman is, I was sort of the spirits guy at Brown-Forman, one of them. And then went on to work on Finlandia vodka after Southern Comfort, right in sort of the height of the, flavored vodka craze, which, if you even remember that, Kerry, that got really far afield in everything from, salmon and bacon to,
the salmon was a little like, wait, what are they doing now?
And then you say, well, it's great in a Bloody Mary. And while that's probably true, it got to be a lot, right? I mean, it got to be a lot for the category. It got to be a lot for the system. It got to be a lot for retailers and everything. So I think, no pun intended, flavored vodka left a little bit of a bad taste in I would say sort of just the ecosystem's mouth a little bit, the trade and even distributors and everything. So having said that, it was better than good evidence that consumers are very interested in flavors in general. And that is a general comment. I mean, if you just look at flavor innovation across almost any category you would pick, from, tea to energy drinks to potato chips to M&Ms, for goodness sakes. I mean, there's all kinds of innovation, again, for better or worse. So having said that, at Brown-Forman, we spent a period in the early 2000s, I guess, where, vodka was kind of king, and we were really struggling with like the founding brand, Old Forester, right? As hot and phenomenal of a bourbon brand as Old Forester is today, that wasn't the case, in the early 2000s until sort of Mad Men or whatever the sort of social impetus was for bourbons and whiskeys to really, turn back around and begin to, assert themselves as a consumer, it's this powerful proposition. So at, sometime in the late, 2009, 10, 11, I got, in my head that there was an opportunity to do, flavors credibly in this bourbon and whiskey space. Started thinking about that. Eventually, got my courage up to leave, corporate life, which is a big step. But glad we did. Founded Ballotin with my wife, Lisa, who is, an integral part of this every day. She manages the back office and I do sort of the front office. But anyway, started researching that notion of really credible, whiskey flavors that spring naturally from that beautiful, bourbon taste spectrum. You've seen the flavor wheels for bourbon, which are a beautiful way to articulate all the nuance and complexity of that bourbon spectrum. And in that, chocolate is a kind of a prominent, holds a prominent space in that wheel, and not just chocolate, but the ancillary sort of flavors of caramels and vanillas and nuts and then toffee, right? And then even mint, is a naturally occurring sort of one of the great flavors that you get out of all that beautiful mix of, aging that whiskey in those charred barrels and all that. So anyway, as far as the chocolate part, I mean, I don't have a any kind of a unique or special chocolate history, but in my time at Brown-Forman, I did a lot of work, on premise. I go on premise bars and restaurants and things, and just the both, from across the bar and from the kitchen, the culinary and cocktail aspects. Just the notion of these flavors, being around that for many years, these flavors that are beautiful on their own, but somehow take on a differently articulated, character when you put them together. Chocolate and whiskey are just one of those things. I mean, one of my favorite stories about one of our products, specifically the bourbon bowl, which is not as well known, sort of as you get geographically, concentrically away from Kentucky, people might not know that a bourbon ball is that bourbon and buttercream sort of infused center dipped in chocolate. It's a confection that was developed in Kentucky in the early 1930s, and it was developed by chocolatiers, Ruth Boo, who's with Rebecca Ruth Candies. And the story is, and all these, we think it's true, but she was at a Kentucky state dinner, a sesquicentennial dinner, which was the 150th celebration of the state of Kentucky around 1932 or 3, I think. And the governor at the time was, and now you can't make this up, his name was Rudy Laffoon, which is a fantastic old Kentucky name, Rudy Laffoon. And they were having dessert, and they were serving, of course, Kentucky bourbon, and they had some dark chocolate. And he said, there's nothing better than a sip of Kentucky bourbon and a bite of fine chocolates. And lo and behold, Ruth Boo, the chocolatier, happened to be sitting at the table and said, now there is something. So she went to work and developed a bourbon ball a couple of years later. So, I mean, again, steeped in this heritage and nature of, these great flavors that come together and they produce something that's, ethereal and ephemeral and even better than the two component parts, greater than the whole. So that was kind of the thought, began digging into it from a product development standpoint. And just did what you do when you're developing a product. You do the hard work. You do a bunch of prototypes. You figure out, what's the best payoff for the consumer. What exceeds the expectations that you're creating in consumers' minds. And so originally, Kerry, we started with 4 flavors, which was the original chocolate, the caramel turtle, the bourbon ball, and the chocolate mint. And the strategic imperative for Ballotin, and I promise you'll get to ask another question here in a minute. Not filibustering, just it's heart and soul here with Ballotin. But there were sort of 3 strategic imperatives. Number one, I wanted the flavors; they would necessarily be an honest reflection of flavors that were naturally occurring in that bourbon and whiskey spectrum. So we talked about that. So these would be flavors that would be lifted, naturally from those beautifully occurring essences in the whiskey spectrum. Number 2. They would be familiar enough to consumers where they would have an indication of what they were getting before they made a $25 bet on a bottle of Ballotin, not knowing what it would taste like, right? So caramel turtle, I mean, you sort of put a notion in people's heads. They may have had a New Orleans praline or literally a caramel turtle or whatever. And so they say, okay, I think I know what I expect with this flavor. And then the third imperative was that we had to pay that off with the juice in the bottle, right? So the worst thing to do is set up an expectation and then disappoint consumers. And they say, well, that's not what I was expecting, right? That's
Right,
the worst
exactly.
thing that you could hear from somebody. That's not what I was expecting. So again, naturally, they sprang naturally from the spectrum. People fairly familiar with what they were, and then they delivered on the promise. So that's kind of the way we went at commercializing what I thought was a really good idea. As it turns out, it was a great idea because there's all kinds of people doing it right now. I'm selling a lot of cases doing it. So
Yeah.
that's the derivation. I'll tell you now that the name Ballotin.
Well, wait a minute. Let me ask some questions here
Okay, all
before
right.
you tell me about the name. I'm
I'll
just
get
going
you.
to get to that. But
Get
while
to
we're
this.
talking about the first original four, I'm
Yeah,
holding up here the original chocolate.
you are
And then I also was given the chocolate toffee.
newest.
Now, are
Yeah,
are the original four all still out on the market?
they are. They are.
Okay,
We
then I'm gonna have to
yeah,
try the other three. And
yeah.
then this one is the newest one. And then is there any other ones out there besides? So it's four,
Yeah.
six, five.
So there's six whiskeys now, and so you the original the four horse people and the toffee, but the peanut butter, the chocolate peanut butter, launched about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And again, it meet the criteria. But that was a little bit of a response to just, peanut butter oddly is having a moment, right, in the category.
Right.
So, I mean, give the people what they want. So that was, and again, just that chocolate peanut butter is such an iconic pairing that I think we can own uniquely. I mean, no, we are the only, chocolate whiskey, and we have expressions within that. But the DNA of chocolate is, no pun intended, baked into the brand. And so we feel like we have, unique both opportunity and a little bit of provenance there in all of those chocolate spaces. So anyway, the peanut butter chocolate, and then we launched some creams, Kerry, over the last 3 or 4 years, I guess now. So there's a chocolate cherry cream, a chocolate mocha cream, and
Ooh,
again, homage to the mighty consumer, chocolate peanut butter cream.
love
So
it.
they are all natural Wisconsin dairy cream. A little bit of our whiskey. They're 34 proof, right? So they're kind of in that cordial space, and are just silky and yummy, yummy.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
when did you start the company with your wife? And how long before you decided, let's do this? Did it take you from conception to, or from the conception to
So
actually fulfilling?
yeah. So so let's do this was probably early 2014,
Okay.
and that involved leaving the corporate world and then paying some bills by doing some consulting. I mean, you can't swing a
Yeah.
dead cat in Kentucky without hitting a whiskey bourbon consultant, for goodness
Yeah.
sake. So hung the shingle out for a little bit while we did product development, and then actually launched in like October or November of 2015. So I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. We're in Austin, Texas now. Moved the business here a couple of years ago, but we're from Louisville, so the epicenter of bourbon geekdom, which there'll be lots to talk about, Kerry, with that as well.
Right.
But I mean, I say that affectionately. I mean, I'm a bit of a bourbon geek, so but right in the hotbed of why are you all doing this to whiskey? So kind of thing. In 2015, and then you sort of kind of roll states out a little bit at a time. So I think we had Kentucky and South Carolina going in 2015, then added 5 or 6 or 7 states in 16, and we're up to 42 states now or something like that. So
Oh,
we're
that's
kind
great.
of basically U.S. wide at this point.
Well, I think it's time we start on the chocolate. Are you going to join me with the chocolate bourbon?
I don't have one at hand, but I believe me, Kerry, I can
You
talk
don't.
you through it. I can
What
go.
about the toffee? Do you have the toffee at hand?
No, isn't that awful? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're supposed to be tasting with me.
Oh
Come on
my
now.
heck! I got work. I
Listen,
got
that's in
work to
trouble.
do.
That's in trouble. They didn't tell you we're tasting on this thing.
I
All
know.
right.
Sorry.
I have work to do too, but we're just going to take a little sip.
Let's
I
try.
mean, it's after 12. We're
It
okay.
is. It is. It's happy hour. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Yeah.
It is 5 o'clock somewhere.
Can I give you my spiel and then you tell me what you tell me what you think? Is that okay?
Yes. Well, let me tell you what I'm getting on the nose.
Okay. Perfect.
Chocolate. Shocker. I'm getting chocolate on the
I
nose.
mean, look, I'm truth in advertising, Kerry. I'm straightforward.
And I love the color of the original chocolate. It's a very chocolatey. It looks like, I mean, honestly, it looks like if you took like a mid-color scotch or bourbon and then just dropped a little bit of Hershey syrup in it. You got a
Yeah.
nice dark color. It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
like an amber. The legs on it are very nice.
This is so exciting when I see somebody taste it out.
That is like dessert in a glass right there.
Yeah.
You can definitely taste the chocolate, but you also can taste the whiskey, and it's like you're eating chocolate with your, and this, I can see this in so many different cocktails, and also as like an after dinner aperitif.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So,
Mm.
we think, we say it's a great intersection between whiskey and flavor, right? So we feel like and that was one of the things we really tried to do is hit that balance. We say warm, not hot, because it's 60 proof, so it gives you the old Kentucky hug at the end. You can really feel that
Mhm.
warmth, down into your chest and all that, which is very satisfying. Not a challenge, right? It's not a challenge at all to take a little Ballotin and enjoy it. But good whiskey bones, right? So maintains its whiskey delivery despite that good flavor. So that was a great. I'm backing off. You did great on the original chocolate. Tell us what's going on with the toffee.
Okay,
I've
so
met my
the
match.
toffee. Oh, this is the one I start. Last night when I opened these, I had this one first because my housemate was here, and I said, "I got 2 new ones. You want to try?" And he goes, "Oh, what are they?" And I said, "I got an original chocolate and a toffee." He goes, "Toffee? Oh, we got to try the toffee." So I tried it first, and right off the nose, it's kind of got a burnt marshmallow, um, nutty toffee-y scent on the nose. It's a little lighter in color. It's a little more gold than amber, but the legs are still wonderful. That, as soon as I tasted it last night, I said, "Where is the vanilla ice cream with pralines on it?"
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to douse that on top, mix it in, put it in the whipped cream. This is this again, dessert in a glass. It's delicious. And what I like about both of these is it's not like a whiskey that's trying to be something other than what it's supposed to be, which is a beautiful flavor of candy and whiskey together. And I like that it tastes like what it's actually supposed to taste like, which with a lot of flavored beverages, vodka, they don't always taste like what they're supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
And I think these two are absolutely delicious. And I think you hit the nail right on the nose with the flavor profiles.
Thank you, Kerry. I appreciate that because you have, and so many consumers in this space have gotten so smart and so experienced and educated about bourbons and whiskeys. And so I always appreciate when somebody who I know is coming from a point, information, experience, appreciation of the category that you can appreciate Ballotin for what it is. It's not going to replace your Ardbeg. It's not going to replace your Woodford. That's not the intent. But people drink such a wide variety of spirits, beer, wine, and spirits, depending on what you're doing and who you're with and everything. And we've studied, in my former life, drinking portfolios and even loyal brand consumers, 15 or 18 of their last 100 alcohol drinks were that brand because it's so situational. And, if you're
Right.
at a Mexican restaurant, you're probably going to have a margarita. If you're at the
Right.
ballpark, you're going to have a beer with your hot dog, right? So, I mean, there's room in most people's portfolio for a brand like Ballotin. And what I like what you said, which, gets to the sort of lifestyle truism or imperative that we're in. I just don't think I think we all love them, but we just don't eat desserts the way we used to. I mean, that's the dessert is not a regular part of
Right.
the experience, whether people are in a hurry or just trying to, manage their calories a little bit. But, cocktail before dinner, glass of wine with dinner, after dinner. And I had the same experience with Lisa. You just want something to cap it off a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't want a big piece of cheesecake. I mean, not
Just a
necessarily.
little, just a little.
You
little-
might another piece of cheesecake, but you might like a little bit of balancing.
Yes. You know what I was thinking when I was drinking the second one? Last night we were kind of going over all the different cocktails we could make with these. Originally, obviously, when we tasted the original chocolate, I said easily a chocolate martini. And then my housemate said the black Manhattan, which, yes, absolutely
Yes.
black Manhattan.
Love
And
it.
then I was just thinking now with the toffee, you could totally put this in a mudslide
Yeah.
with, with the kind of ice cream type.
Yep.
There's just so many possibilities. And what I think too, I like about this is I feel like this will get the 20 somethings involved. Cause I know when I was in my early 20s, I was all about the Midori sours and the mudslides and the fruity drinks and the daiquiris. And then my later 20s, I was like, I need less sugar. I need something more, less
Awesome.
sweet, more,
Yes.
and this does both. Like it starts you off with the sweet, but it also has the savory.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. It's great.
Good.
Now
Thank
tell me,
you so much for that, Kerry.
what does the word Ballotin come from? What does it mean? And why did you choose it?
Okay, so more history. I do love my history, but in the early 1915 or so, the preeminent chocolatiers of the time were the Belgian chocolatiers, and around that time, they developed a technique where they began to infuse their chocolates with cream. So it made the chocolates quite a bit more delicate. They needed a way to present and sell those, fine, more delicate chocolates. So,
oh, wait, sorry, I just thought of two more.
okay.
A black Russian and a white Russian. Yes.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
The flavors just keep coming out in my mouth, and I just keep thinking of all these things.
I know. Although we're shying away from Russian at this exact moment, but we'll
just call it something else. We'll call it the white Ballotin and the dark Ballotin.
Perfect. I like it.
There you go.
I like it. So, and keep the ideas coming. So they needed a way to sell those, protect and sell those fine chocolates. The wife of one of the chocolatiers, preeminent chocolatiers of the day, developed that compartmentalized box that even still today, chocolates come in. So if you've ever given or received a box of chocolates, that box is actually called a ballotin. And it's based on the French word ballot, which means small package. So that's the way we've sort of, we feel like it's one of those, beautiful words. I mean, there's some words in the English language that just, are nice. And even if you're not sure what they mean, they have a nice ring to them. And it does, as I said, it sort of bakes chocolate into the DNA of the brand. So that's where the name is from.
That's awesome. So where do you guys source your chocolate, and do you do all your chocolate tasting the same as you would do your whiskey tasting out of the barrels and make sure the chocolate's ready?
Yeah, no, it's not. That's not exactly the problem. I mean, all of these, the flavorings are kind of assembled at a flavor house. Again, not a very sexy term, but good friend of mine who's also a former Brown-Forman guy named Dave Defoe owns a company in Louisville called Flavor Man, right? And the whole flavor industry is it's a kind of very concentrated industry, but there's kind of a center of excellence in that area, probably because we do so many spirits out of, Kentucky. But so specific recipe compounds are assembled at Flavor Man. So it's cocoa, chocolate solids, kind of cocoa powder, mint oils, vanilla oils, and things like that you just have to kind of emulsify the heck out of. Chocolate especially doesn't want to melt without fat. So you've got to, there's a whole lot of emulsification that goes on before it's added to the whiskey. And then it also, doesn't want to play nice with the whiskey necessarily. You got to do a lot of blending on that. But it's not aged after that. So the flavor compounds are added and then into the bottle it goes.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But a chocolate tasting, Kerry, is a great idea. I need to put that on the to-do list. But yeah, the flavors come together in the process, as opposed to being like a pre-finished caramel turtle, right? Kind of that then goes in. Yeah.
And so, how long, when you're coming up with these recipes, how long does it take you guys to get the flavored parts to just what you think is going to match up with the bourbon? And the bourbon, do you guys distill yourself, or do you source that?
We do source. And I mean, there was especially at the beginning, the strategic reason for that. And we did that with intent, because we wanted this to be a $24.99, bottle of whiskey rather than a $49.99 bottle of whiskey, whatever. So there's just people that, again, from my connections in the business and networking, we knew we could find, better juice than I could distill. I didn't want to be a distiller. I didn't want to invest $5 million in the distillery. I just didn't want to,
right.
That wasn't part of the business model. So, and I say this not to be cavalier or anything, I don't know that a boutique. Well, certainly you can't. I mean, you can't flavor bourbon. Although the TTB's getting a little looser on standards of identity, I think I'm seeing some flavored bourbons out there now, which didn't used to be the case, and I think weakens the standard of identity a little bit for bourbon. So, we're whiskey. We're aged 3 years in used barrels. That's the way our whiskey. It's a high corn mash because that gives the corn throws off a little bit of a sweeter whiskey, which complements the flavor really well back and forth. You can imagine all the spiky, oak and char notes that you get with bourbon and how that would be. They integrate less seamlessly than our whiskey, which has more of a sort of a Canadian or an Irish whiskey profile by virtue of the used barrels. But
Right.
anyway, I mean, to be totally honest, you shouldn't flavor a $2,500 barrel of bourbon. That doesn't make sense to me, and it wouldn't make sense to consumers to throw it up on the shelf at $60. So,
Right.
so we're using very, very quality, whiskey, but appropriate both in terms of its flavor, character, and composition, and in terms of the value that it delivers, for consumers in a bottle amount.
Do you have a specific mash bill that you asked them to make for you, or do you just picked one that they've already had?
We started with the first, and now just because we're using so much whiskey, we're laying down we're there. I mean, I guess there's a technicality between sourcing and contract distilling.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
at this point we're
So
contract.
it started sourcing and now it's contracting.
Yeah.
Great.
Which again, I mean, as long as and I've been through the scary times of had that or whatever. I mean, I'm proud of MGP as our partner. They make fantastic spirit in their own brands, and they make their own brands are fantastic. And as long as you're honest with people about what you're doing, I think you're fine. I'm not a distiller.
Yeah, no, transparency is what people want,
I know.
And if that's not good enough for them, then they can go somewhere else. I don't know. But I always feel like as long as you're not saying, oh, yeah, we made this from scratch,
Yes.
then I just want to, I mean, if you tell me you got it from MGP, I'm like, that makes sense because MGP is delicious and this is delicious. So I can totally see that it's good quality stuff.
It's just part of the value proposition, right? I mean, it just to me, it made business sense for where this would end up in a retail price point on the shelf for consumers, presenting good value. Value, price is not, what is it? It's not what you pay, it's what you get, right? That's the value proposition. So I think we did a nice job with the value proposition.
So what are do you have another list of flavors that you're coming up with? And when you're working on the flavors, do you go out to the flavor guy and work with him and work on blending the flavors until it's just what you want?
We come up with our flavors ourselves. Although, Dave, like I say, I can't say enough good things about Dave and how much of a resource he is. And he's one of these guys that, I mean, I'll get these numbers 1,000% wrong, Kerry, but most people can taste, whatever, 150 parts per million or whatever it is. Dave's one of those guys that literally, he can taste 2 parts per million, whatever the number is. He's like a super identifier in the taste department. So that he really is one of our secret weapons. Although they do work in all kinds of spaces in the beverage business. But having said that, I mean, the great thing about, we could have a whole nother discussion about what it means to go from, corporate life and infrastructure and how effing smart you feel working at a big company to what it's like going out on your own and realizing I knew almost nothing, but I could walk next door to somebody who knew a lot about finance and knew a lot about consumer insights and knew a lot about marketing and everything. So, I mean, that recognition and realization is extraordinarily painful. And we've, still working our way through that. Having said that, what is nice is, you don't have to get every executive's fingerprints and footprints and egos all over every decision, right? I mean, you stop and start, 28 different times, where with us, I turn to Lisa and say, hey, what do you think about this? And she says, I think we need a little more, I think we need to be a little lighter or a little darker. And then we go, okay, we're off we go. And and we can do it. I mean, there's a little more to it than that, obviously, but.
Do you guys bottle in Kentucky or do you bottle in Texas?
We bottle in Texas. So we have a partner here that's a very cool little craft distillery called, I say little, they're doing great. They're called Still Austin, and they are.
Oh yeah, we've had Chris Seals. Yes, we've had Chris Seals on the show before.
Oh, he's great. Oh my God. Yeah, he's the best. And they have a great creative little brand, and they're doing amazing work in their distillery, doing their own distilling and everything. But yes, they bottle for us there, and we actually bottle the creams in Wisconsin in a
Oh, wow. Okay.
secret
Got to get that
location.
fresh cow milk.
That's
The
it. I
fresh
mean,
cow dairy.
you got dairy specialists all over the place up there. So
That's
and it
great.
is kind of a specialty. So yeah, the creams come out of Wisconsin. I'm
Very
so
cool.
excited you talked to Chris and still Austin. That's so
We
good.
had him on season 1 of Spirits of Whiskey.
Good for you. They're
You won't be able to see him on that episode, but you can definitely go back and take a
Go
listen to
back
it.
and hear.
It is on the barrelroomchronicles.com in season 1 section for
Good for you.
Spirits of Whiskey. So, Paul, tell us where we can find you on your socials, your website. What stores are the best places to find it if you were anywhere in the States?
Yep. So all of our social media is Ballotin Whiskey, either at Ballotin Whiskey, Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and all that, or ballotinwhiskey.com is where our homepage is. We've got a pretty good, buy here sort of a section where if you put in your zip code and click on that, it'll, show you some stores.
Okay.
Lots of recipes and everything. I mean, we're in, the big one, we're in most Total Wines around the country. And then, your sort of local independent liquor store, but also those, like in Bevmo for you out in California, we're in Bevmo, and ABC Liquor in Florida, and Specs in Texas, and whatever your equivalent of those, kind of regional liquor chains, we're in those. We're in a lot of the smaller grocery chains. We haven't quite broken into like Kroger, yet at this point. That's just a big, commitment and a big footprint, and they need, full on geographic coverage and everything. But almost any of your local liquor stores or liquor chains, or even your local Deerbergs in St. Louis, or I'm trying to think of some California chains, but the sort of more local or regional grocery chains, in Publix in Florida, like for instance.
How about Mission Wine and Spirits? You in there?
Yes, we are.
Good, great. Cool.
I remember that pop.
Well, Paul, it has been fantastic learning about your journey to this beautiful chocolate whiskey and the Toffee whiskey. And I can't wait to see what Chef Louise has to say about both of these. And I think she's going to have a hard time picking one to make. She might have to make something out of both because
maybe.
I mean, there's so many possibilities with this. I'm so excited to see what she comes up with.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks. It's been great to talk to you. And again, I appreciate your enthusiasm about Ballotin because you know your stuff.
Thank you. I love it when people love what I love. That's great.
Yeah, right. That's good.
I love finding like-minded people, and it's just so fun.
Yeah. I mean, we're whiskey peddlers. I mean, how hard is it? Let's get out there and have a cocktail with somebody and spread the joy. That's it.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much, and we will reach out to you again soon.
All right, Kerry. Love it. Thanks very much. Good luck to you.
World of Wheezy is up next. Stay with us. Like what you've seen on BRC? Want to see more? Experience more? And maybe even taste more? Then head over to our Ko-fi site and become a member of the Barrel Room Parlor. By choosing the copper level membership, you'll have exclusive access to videos related to topics discussed on the podcast and blog posts for members only. As an Amber member level, you'll enjoy everything from our copper level as well as various spin-off series including The Cutting Room Floor and Kindred Spirits. In addition, the Amber membership includes exclusive discounts to live in-person events. To join, visit www.barrelroomchronicles.com and click on Become a Member in the navigation bar. Or go straight to our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC and click on the membership link. Once you've joined, you'll have access to everything your chosen level has to offer. You'll even be able to participate with the show by commenting on videos and other posts. Don't wait. Sign up today for exclusive content and event discounts in the Barrel Room Parlor. Welcome to this week's edition of World of Wheezy. Normally we get Chef Louise Leonard here in person, but since the holidays are upon us, her cooking skills are in very high demand. However, that didn't stop her from sending over her notes about the dessert she made using Ballotin's chocolate toffee whiskey. First, Chef Louise created her own homemade chocolate sauce using the whiskey, then used some of the same whiskey to soak cherries. The end result was a delicious, boozy chocolate toffee sundae. These whiskeys were so tasty, I had to experiment with them myself. Since Louise used the toffee expression, I went with the original to make a festive holiday hot cocoa. First, I took an Irish coffee glass and swirled chocolate syrup around the inside. Then I added a ½ ounce of Ballotin's original chocolate whiskey, followed by 1 cup of steamed milk, sprayed on some whipped cream, and lastly, added a cinnamon stick for the garnish. So if you're looking for a great dessert and a hot drink this holiday, pick up some of Ballotin's whiskey. We'll have a link to where you can buy it in our show notes. That does it for today's show. To read notes on this episode or learn more about our guests, please visit barrelroomchronicles.com. Want to interact with the show or have questions for our guests? Then ask them on our socials or send us an email through our website. Or better yet, leave us a voicemail on our Anchor page, and your recording might be played in our new Speakeasy segment. If you like what you heard, please rate and subscribe to the podcast. If you really liked it and you want to show your support, buy us a whiskey through our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC, or become an exclusive member of the Barrel Room Parlor, where you'll get exclusive content not seen anywhere else. If you work in the whiskey or spirits industry, or just have a deep passion for whiskey and want to share your spirits journey, register to be a guest through our website. Last but not least, please enjoy your spirits responsibly. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, Solange-va.
Barrel Room Chronicles is a production of First Reel Entertainment and is distributed by Anchor FM and is available on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.